Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Well, no tigers and no bears, but I know somebody who was pretty close to some lions because he went to Africa on safari for the first time. And the he I am referring to, Mr. Tate. Mr. Tate is now an African hunter.
Yes, I am. And you know I was there because you were there with me.
Yeah. Well, we didn't travel together, but we ended up in the same camp and we hunted together quite a bit. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
You kind of liked it, didn't you?
It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. You'd suppose you'll ever go back again?
I think so. I think I will.
I have yet to meet someone who's gone an African safari and said, boy, I'll never do that again.
I can't imagine saying that, actually.
Well, what did you like about it?
You know, I think there were certain things that were different than I thought would happen, and there's certain things that were about what I expected. But there was also things that I would change about my trip, I would say.
Well, before you start changing things, just give me a overall, why did it appeal to you? Why would you go back? What's the basic draw, other than there's lots of animals and you get to hunt and shoot a lot?
I think the newness of it for me, like just
Novelty.
Experiencing something that I had no experience with,
Okay.
was unique to me because I haven't done that for a long time. Like hunting in an area, in a place, hunting animal species that act differently than what I've hunted in the past, in a place that I've never seen before, in a terrain that I've never seen before, in really an odd climate that I've never hunted before. It was colder than I thought it would be. It was, it never got below freezing, but it got close a few times. And I didn't come prepared for that. So I brought a jacket and a raincoat, and I got cold a little bit a few times. But
yeah, it always surprises me. As many times as I've been there, I still tend to underpack. But I have learned to take along some base layers, same as you would do here in the mountains, because they don't take up much room, and you can always take it off. It's a little slow and clumsy to take off the very bottom layer. So sometimes I'll just bring along the rain gear to break the wind.
Yeah.
That seems to help a lot. But yeah, you do need to have a pretty reasonable jacket, good insulation.
Yes. And so I would change that. I would say that what addicted me to Africa in general is just the newness. There's something new every day. I mean, there was a different type of bird, the guinea fowl or sand grouse or whatever it was. There's a different type of animal that you saw every day. And it was like I saw a different type of antelope every single day. I didn't, it was like there's
something new popped up.
Here we have deer, elk, antelope, maybe moose, right?
Yeah.
And there it was like, they had hartebeest, and they had impala, and they had reedbuck, and they had wildebeest, and they had eland, and they had buffalo, and I mean that's not even and zebra and everything else. And it was like every day you'd see something new, and it was like, oh my gosh, I want to touch and feel it.
Yeah.
But I went there kind of like I only want to kill a buffalo, maybe one or two cool animals, and every animal I saw was like, I kind of want to shoot that too.
Mr. Overkill. Well, I hear you. A lot of people will say, oh, you bloodthirsty killer, of course, not understanding what fires up a hunter and all the things we do. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. It's like it's all new. You're sort of like a butterfly collector or a birder or a peaks collector if you're a mountain climber. It's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's not like we want to kill all these animals. It's just that's part of what being a hunter is. You want to have hunted that animal and gotten your hands on it and eaten it and all those things.
Yep.
But yeah, that is the magic of Africa, is it's the incredible diversity of, here we're used to diversity in birds. Of course, it's the same there in most places, but not, as you earlier said, the wildlife diversity is just not the same.
No.
Funny thing about American wildlife, obviously, certain animals are native to certain countries. We had whitetails, mule deer, elk. But the crazy thing with North America has pretty much been proven that moose, the sheep, and elk all came across from Asia, and they spread into North America. Of course, we came across essentially from Asia ourselves and spread across different peoples. But, wildlife migrates. But still, Africa seems to be distinct in that all of the animals from the Sahara Desert southward really could not get anywhere else. They couldn't take a hike across the Sahara Desert and survive to get into the Middle East and then spread into Asia or vice versa. So that's why I think there are such different animals there, and they all seem to have sprung from the antelope line, not deer. There are very few deer in the very north of Africa, but when we talk about safaris in Africa, it's all that
antelope species.
Yeah, and from the Sahara Desert southward. And you've got a lot more grasslands there and dried country than you think. Was your perception of Africa fairly colored by Tarzan and jungles and wet stuff?
No, I would say it was honestly more so like the documentaries that I've seen on like the elephant migrations and stuff, where it's like, oh, for parts of the year Africa is beautiful and green and lush, and then the other part of the year everything dies and nothing survives.
Yeah.
And there's mud puddles, and the hippos are clinging on, and the crocodiles are clinging on.
Yeah.
That's more what I perceived it. So when we got there, I don't even know were we there in the dry season?
Yes.
It was greener than I thought it'd be, being honest with you.
Yeah, but you notice how crunchy the ground was?
It was like walking on cornflakes. It was...
But you nailed it. That's exactly right. It's a dry season. They've got their rainy season when apparently, I've never been there during the rainy season because you can't get around. Everything's mud.
Yeah.
But they say it's just an absolute deluge every day. Inches and inches of rain will fall. So the whole place is essentially flooded. But then it stops and you've got your dry season.
Yeah.
We're not really all that used to that over here. It's more of an even... rains a little bit every week or something, especially in the eastern states.
Yeah, and realistically, at least in the Mountain West, most of your rain and most of your moisture comes from snow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not how it is in Africa. It just rains a crap ton from what it sounds like.
Yep. Well, we were there in the dry season, and that's when most of the safari hunting is done. The advantages are you can get around. It's not too wet and muddy. But the other one is that you've got less vegetation, so you can find game more easily.
I was also shocked with how much they burned everything there.
Yeah.
Very much slash and burn mentality. They burn everything.
Yeah, there's a plus and a minus on that. One is the slash and burn agriculture, which is kind of a primitive ancient tradition around the world. And it works out pretty well if the human population remains fairly low, because they slash all the vegetation and start planting their crops, and then they get good crops for a few years, and then they deplete the soil. When instead of staying there and continuing to deplete it until it erodes, they move on. And they find a fresh place. Well, that ends up creating a mosaic that supports a lot of diversity in wildlife. And you're seeing a similar thing with the fires. They, I think, learned long ago, the same as Native Americans. When the Europeans first came to the U.S., they reported about how many fires there were. Yeah. And the Native Americans were setting those fires on purpose because it revegetates. They're regenerating by putting fertilizer, the ash fertilizer, into the soil, but also you burn off the over thatch, and then the new stuff comes up too. Yeah, the new grass comes up, and that pulls the game in. So yeah, fire is a big deal over there, and every fall, they'll grow. You saw some of that grass.
Oh my gosh,
it's just really tall. So they burn that off. Now you can see the game, but the game can then move in and say, new grass has sprouted up, and they've got good graze.
We were looking for buffalo, and the buffalo I ended up shooting was about 45 yards, and all I could see from 45 yards away through this thick stuff was his shoulder.
Well, that's the part you want.
That's what I wanted to see, but that's all I could see was the buffalo's shoulder from 45 yards away.
How long did it take you to see that and figure out that you had a shot?
I would say a solid minute. Because, the buffalo are moving around. There was probably 50 or 60 buffalo or maybe more. You were there with me on that one.
Yeah, I pulled up behind you after you were out there in the trees. Like, what's he doing? And sure enough.
Which, by the way, the buffalo hunt was probably the hardest hunt that we did while we were over there.
You were tracking for all day on that one, weren't you?
We were. So Rico and I, my business partner Rico, he was there with us as well. He's behind the camera right now.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
But we tracked that buffalo herd. We traveled about 15 miles tracking
15 miles?
The buffalo themselves probably went 7. We're hopping in trucks and trying to drive around them.
Get around them and get the wind right and everything.
But we hiked probably 7 miles after them.
Okay.
And we got close to them, but it was so thick we just
never can see them.
We could never see them. And then the next day, we're driving by, and there's a herd of buffalo right off the road.
So you didn't have to hike miles for that one.
No, we didn't have to hike miles for that one. So we're driving past, and some of the buffalo, mostly cows and young, were 30, 25 yards from the road.
So you got the whole herd in the forest.
In the forest. And then one of the trackers and then the outfitter pointed out, that's a good male.
bull to shoot. Okay.
And I was like, okay. And then, they all mingle back together.
Yeah.
Like they do. And so then I could see a shoulder. And I was like, is that the buffalo I'm supposed to shoot? I know that's near the buffalo I was supposed to shoot.
Yeah.
And then finally I could see the boss as he turned, and I was like, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is always a real stress factor for me. When you are ready to shoot, but you can't because you've got to make sure it's the right animal. You're trusting your PH and your tracker to tell you which animal.
Yep.
And then you have to figure out, am I interpreting what he's telling me properly? Does he want me to shoot that one or that one or that one?
Well, that was true because he's pointing through the trees, and there's 3 black blobs right next to each other.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I got to get directly behind your finger to make sure I'm on the right black blob because it could have gone south if I would have shot the wrong one.
The first time I hunted Africa, my PH wanted me to shoot using his shoulder for my tripod support. Are you crazy? No, do that. I would put my rifle on his shoulder. He would plug his ears, and if he noticed that my barrel wasn't pointing at the right animal, he would move it. And it worked great. We went 12 for 12 on different animals. So I don't recommend you guys shoot your rifle off your guide's shoulder. But
I did that once.
This guy was bigger than me, and he insisted. So
yeah,
but it worked.
There was one time I had a client do that with me for an elk, and he killed the elk. So we're good there. He was so excited. The elk were crossing the clearing. There was probably 150 elk maybe more actually, probably 200 or 300 elk in that group. They're crossing this clearing, and I said there was nowhere to rest, and I was like, just put it on your shoulder. So I'm plugging my ears with my thumbs, holding my binoculars with my pinkies like this. And every time a bull would cross the clearing, is that the one? Is that the... Nope, just wait a minute. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest bull I've ever seen. And then another one come across. And then finally when I said, okay, that's the one, shoot it. He's like, that's the one? Like, yep. Yeah. Shoot it. And he finally shot it. But
that's the same way you were with that buffalo, I remember.
I was like, can I shoot it? Well, he's like, well, can you see its shoulder? Yeah. Is that the right one? Now you're making me second guess. I'm not sure.
Now, listen, when you shot that buffalo, what was its reaction and your reaction?
Honestly, my reaction was I didn't get super anxious until after I'd shot. Because, it was a 416 Rigby. By the way, it was the first time I'd fired that 416 Rigby.
This is not good advice, guys.
It is not good advice, especially for buffalo. The day before, I'd gone out with a 375 H&H that the outfitter handed me and said it's dead on at 100. I trusted him with that. I shot at an animal, and I ended up wounding it because it was shooting 2 inches left and about 6-7 inches high.
We better stop and let folks know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Quite often now, folks are going over without their firearms to simplify travel.
There's a lot of paperwork and cost associated with it.
It's not too horrible, but still it's a little easier not to have to mess with it. So the outfitters are saying you can use our rifle. So we trusted our outfitter, PH. He's got a lot of clients every year and a lot of rifles, and he knows which rifles work for his kind of hunting. You figure, well, this should work out pretty well. I'd rather use my own rifles, but what the hey. So we get there and we have to borrow a rifle. And then it's like, well, we really don't want to go do a bunch of zeroing at the range. I'll let you take one shot or something like that.
Because ammunition is so expensive there. I mean, in Zambia, it's $20.
$4 a round tax.
Just to get it
$4 for each cartridge taxed on top of the price
whatever
of the
cost. So a 416 Rigby is $30, $40 a shot. And so... understandably, the outfitter was a little bit hesitant to let us waste a ton of ammunition just practicing.
Well, it's not just the cost of it. He can't get it. You can't go down to your local sporting goods store. There are no local sporting goods stores. It was like 6 hours from the nearest town that had any kind of stores.
Yeah. And I think it's like 15 from where you can really get ammunition.
Yeah, they've got all the way back to the capital city to find a gun store, and then they've got all kinds of paperwork, and you can imagine the government control. It's not the United States of America's Second Amendment, folks. Not even close.
No.
It's a real eye-opener and an education for somebody who thinks that's no big deal, because it is a big deal.
It is. And no, I would, if I was to go back, first of all, before I say any of this, I would bring my own rifle.
Yeah.
I would pay the money, I'd go through the hassle, and I would bring my own gun so that I was 100% confident with where it was zeroed, that I had my own ammunition, that I was confident with, and then I would re-zero it when I got there, spend 15 rounds down range, potentially even, especially going
If
after
you
Cape
need
buffalo.
15 rounds down range to get zero, you're in trouble.
Well, 3 or 4 rounds down range.
You ought to be
that
able to
kind of
confirm
thing.
at 3 shots.
Yeah. But even if I wanted to go after some cull animals before going after the buffalo, whatever.
That is a good idea, too. Once you get there, zero your rifle or his rifle. Get familiar with it. But then take some smaller animals, some cull animals, before you go for the big expensive.
Yep.
Because if you wound an animal, you've pretty much paid for it. They find blood. They're going to track and track and track. And if you don't recover it,
Your SOL.
pay up.
Yep.
So
I'd wounded an animal the day before with a 375 H&H that was not
shooting high
and left.
Left, okay.
So what ended up happening is I had pulled a little bit to the right, but I would have hit it either center of the shoulder or because it was quartering away. I ended up just grazing the top of its neck.
It was shooting way too high.
Shooting way too high. I mean, at 170 yards, which was how far the sable was, I was shooting. I probably hit a foot high.
Yeah.
I would say.
Crazy.
And I just barely grazed maybe 2 inches below the top of his neck. Not a lethal shot, in my opinion. That animal's not even going to die. If it, the outfitter was like, well, we got to go find it. I was like, how are we even going to be able to tell that it was the animal was
the
shot?
right one, right.
Because it was just such a graze. So you talk about that. So when I'm 45 yards from a Cape buffalo and by the way, guys, we were on our way to the range to zero the rifles when we saw these buffalo. So I had told the outfitter, hey, I'm not hunting anymore until I'm confident with these guns.
Good for you.
Then we stop because there's 45, 50 Cape buffalo on the side of the road, and we may not get another opportunity like this.
Now's the conundrum. Do I zero this rifle or risk shooting high again?
Yeah, and I thought,
So you used a different rifle this
I was
time.
using a different rifle again, or on this one, so it was like a 416 Rigby. 45 yards, even if I'm off by 6
that's
inches,
close.
I should still hit it within the range of where I want to kill it.
Yeah.
So I was very careful. I could only see a little piece of it, and then I finally verified it. I shot, and then I started shaking.
Then you started shaking. But what about the buffalo? Did he start shaking?
So the buffalo, I could see that I hit it far forward in the body because his shoulder went down. It was kind of, and then he kind of bucked up.
Okay.
And then took off running.
How
So
far
I
did
knew
he go?
he stopped maybe 50, 60 yards after from where I'd shot him.
Okay. I think that's when I showed up, and I could just see some black in there and quite a few different animals, and I didn't know which one you were shooting at.
The whole herd had kind of moved off about 40, 50 yards from there. You could see a few of the animals better before I shot. And they kind of moved off into the trees, and there was another bull standing next to the one I'd shot. And I looked at the outfitter, the PH, and I said, hey, was it a good shot? And he's like, yeah, it was a good shot. And I looked at the tracker. I said, was that a good shot? And he was like, yeah, it was a great shot. You hit it right in the shoulder.
Okay, good.
And I was like, okay.
But he's still standing.
But he's still standing, and it's been 2 minutes at this point.
Oh.
So I'm start shaking because I'm nervous that I've just wounded a Cape buffalo, and now we're going to have to trap through this thick stuff to make things worse. There'd just barely been a guy killed in South Africa by a Cape buffalo, which was not wounded, by the way. I found that out. But I'm shaking. I'm nervous. It never feels good to wound an animal regardless. So I was nervous about the sable and everything else.
But you couldn't really risk another shot because there were so many bulls
So many
mixed
buffalo
together, you
around
couldn't tell
it.
which
It's just
was which.
like bison in the United States. You shoot a bison and all the animals group up and kind of create a wall of horns to protect it. So we're kind of watching it. We can see the one I've hit, and he starts to wobble, and then he lays down after 3 or 4 minutes, and then he finally puts his head down. I would say after 6 minutes, he's dead. Wow. But I'd made a perfect heart shot on that buffalo, and he still stayed on his feet for 5 minutes.
It's crazy. They often say these animals are incredibly tough in Africa, and I've tended to discount that. But boy, on this trip, I did see a lot of just solidly hit right in the chest boiler room animals that would just stay on their feet for an inordinate amount of time.
I was shocked. Rico shot a sable 3 times with a 270 from about 150, 170 yards. And I mean, that thing, the first shot, I could barely even tell he hit it. I was filming it, but the guys with binoculars said he was pumping blood and everything else. Impala, animals as small as impala. Rico shot one with a 270, and it still ran almost 100 yards before it fell over with a perfect heart shot. Betsy shot one with a 243. It ran almost 200 yards with a perfect heart shot.
Yeah, that was crazy. Years ago, I shot one stem to stern. It was looking at me. And I put that bullet, 300 Winchester Magnum, 165 grain. I think it was a Grand Slam bullet from Spear. I put it the length of that animal, and it was lodged back in the hip. And that thing turned around and ran as if I had missed. And it wasn't stumbling or anything. It just dashing off like an impala would for at least 100 yards. I think it was even farther than that. I was absolutely astonished. And of course, its vitals were just soup, essentially.
But it just kept going. Honestly, the only animal that I saw get shot that dropped on the spot was the sable I ended up shooting later on, which I shot with a 9.3 by 6.2, which is that one right there. And that one I hit it high shoulder.
So how many rifles are you shooting on this little adventure?
I shot
That's your third
four
one.
different rifles and 5 animals.
How many of them were zeroed properly?
After I shot that buffalo, we went to the range and we zeroed everything. And after that, we did everything was on.
I think what the lesson was learned by everyone, us and the PHs. Like the PH is false economy. You can't prevent people from getting comfortable with the rifle and zeroing enough to, otherwise you're going to have wounded animals and missed shots, and it just doesn't work for anybody.
No.
So you've got to bite the bullet. And it's kind of silly when you spend all that money flying over there and getting to the camp and everything else, and then you want to save a few bucks on ammunition.
Yeah, it's not worth it, folks. Just pay the money and shoot the rifle a few times.
Yeah, get really comfortable
or bring your own rifle. But honestly, that was kind of the buffalo experience, which was cool.
But then you've got your buffalo. He's an expired now.
Yep,
and I remember the herd
expired.
stayed there for a long time. I wondered what you guys were doing over there because I could see the herd's still in there, but you're not shooting anymore. What's going on?
Yeah, and what had happened is the outfitter actually called me up after, 6 minutes and said, shoot him again, because the herd had slowly started moving off. Okay. And then I got set up to shoot him again, and he's he's dead.
You fell over.
He's done. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised at how long that herd stayed in there. I thought, well, maybe, I don't know. I agree with that clumping. You shoot one and the bulls come around there like, what's happening with my buddy? I don't know what they're thinking or what they're doing, but they stayed around. Maybe he was a big wig and they were all waiting for him to tell them what to do. I don't know.
What's happening, Phyllis?
It was a heck of a buffalo you shot, however. I mean,
big boss.
The boss on
the
that
boss
thing.
on just one of the bosses was about as big as or wide as my torso.
More than 14 inches across the top, wasn't it?
It was impressive.
I never put a tape measure on anything over there, but that thing was massive.
It was big.
And that is really the ammunition that these animals use. You think about how wide are the horns. Everybody goes by horn width. Ooh, I got a 40-incher or a 50-incher. And then there's the drop of the hook before it comes up, and how high does it go up and all this. But what really spells or defines an old big bull is the size of that helmet. All that bone on top of his head, because when he's fighting with his buddies, it's more of a bighorn sheep kind of a crash thing.
Yeah.
But he's also, when he's coming at you,
he doesn't try and intentionally hook you with the hook.
I don't know if they do or they don't, but it's that boss that really crushes you. It's like a rock. It is rock hard and massive and heavy, and 1,300 to 1,500 pound animal at velocity.
What are you talking about? It's a 3,000-pound animal, Ron.
Yeah, right.
There was an article while we were over there that said that a 3,000-pound animal had attacked somebody, and it was like, I'd say that's an oversight.
I think that's a doubling of the actual weight.
But they are big animals. I mean, I don't want to take away from how big they are.
No, and they're, of course, famous for being hard to put down and coming after you and all the rest of it. I have never had a charge. I've only shot 5 buffalo myself, but I've been with friends who've shot. So I think I'm in on the taking of 8 buffalo, and there were never any charges on any of them. But obviously, there are plenty of charges from some people because, as you said, that gentleman was killed while we were there in the same continent, but not the same country. So you do have to be alert and expect that sort of thing. So which cartridge is going to stop that buffalo?
416 Rigby.
Why do you say that?
Because that's what I used. I did also shoot a 500 nitro while I was there in a double rifle. That was a little bit hard to handle, I won't lie.
Well, that's a good point. Hard to handle, guys. Obviously, your objective is to put a bullet in the right place and make a lethal shot, right?
Yeah.
Part of that, to do that, you have to be able to handle that rifle. You have to be able to handle the recoil. Too many people cannot, and then they flinch and they miss it, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you decide which cartridge is going to be effective for you. Yes, the 416 Rigby probably has more knockdown energy than a 9.3 by 62, and you can look at the two right here and see pretty much, yeah, that's obvious. You got a bigger bullet, a heavier bullet, more powder, more velocity, more energy, more everything, right? But if you can't control that thing, I'd rather shoot him with a 30-06.
Yeah.
Because it's the right bullet in the vitals to cause the hemorrhaging that gets the animal. But if a buffalo is wounded and coming at you, would you rather put a 400 grain bullet into him or a 180 grain bullet?
And I think that's, I talked to a couple of different outfitters and PHs while I was over there, whether it was in the airport or whatever. And a lot of them carry a double rifle, not because they use it for hunting per se.
Right.
A lot of them prefer a controlled round feed bolt action rifle.
For hunting.
For hunting.
But for what they're doing with the double,
they want 2 quick shots.
Protecting
to
you.
Stop the buffalo from killing you.
Yeah. And I have long maintained that there is no such thing as a stopping rifle or a stopping cartridge. You always hear about it. Oh, get the biggest, get a 500, get a 600, get a 700 Nitro Express stopping rifle. And yet you read article after article about some guy with those stopping rifles. The client has shot him with a 450 Nitro or a 470 Nitro Express 2 times. It then charges. The PH puts 2 more in him. The hunter puts 2 more in him. It gets into the bushes. They go after him. They shoot a couple more into him. And by the time they're done, it's like Swiss cheese, and it's still coming at him.
Yeah.
So if you shoot a buffalo charging you with a 500 grain bullet at 6,000 foot-pounds of energy and all the rest, and he keeps coming, tells me that's not a stopping rifle.
No.
If you hit them in the central nervous system, it stops them. Standard stuff, guys.
All you're really trying to do is get a cartridge that's big enough that will penetrate into the central nervous system, i.e. the brain, the spine, the neck.
Yeah, but that's been done with all sorts of light cartridges. 30-06s have taken plenty of buffalo. The 7x57 Mauser has taken all kinds of buffalo in the hands of a good shooter. And elephants and all the rest of it. But obviously, do I want to use the 757 with a 175 grain bullet to stop a charging buffalo? No, I'm probably going to go with the 416 Rigby or a 416 Rem Mag or a 375 H&H. But I think the point that I want to make with all this is that I would rather shoot the 375 HH in that case if I can handle the rifle, take the recoil for subsequent shots.
Yeah.
Before you showed up, I was hunting in another country and I was using a borrowed 416 Rigby, same as you did. This rifle was zeroed. It was a great rifle. It was a Park West Arms SD76 top end stuff, But that thing was doing its job, and I put my first shot right where it belongs through the shoulder, and that essentially killed that buffalo. He ran forward a little ways, and I gave him another one, and he fell over. The first shot, I'm sure, had done the trick because it was so quickly after the second shot that he fell over that I'm sure he was dying from the blood loss on that first shot. At any rate, what impressed me was how slowly I got my second shot off. Yeah, I was a big failure. I was not thinking about shooting a 416. I was only thinking about what's the right bull, where's my shot. So when I took it, I wasn't leaning into the round as you want to do with a big kicking rifle. You just kind of manhandle it. I was standing up nice and calmly erect like this with a tripod out the front, and I'd forgotten I was shooting a 400 grain bullet at 2,400 feet per second or whatever it was. And it rocked me back to the point I had to put my foot back to stop myself from going back. I almost went out of the entire picture. And then I had to put another round, and it was like, whoa. So I was unprepared for that stuff. The point is, I'm not exactly the Jolly Green Giant. I don't have a lot of bulk to absorb it. I can handle recoil, but I've got to be prepared. I think in the future, I'm sticking with a 375 H&H for this work because I have cleanly killed buffalo with the same shot with a 375.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. I'm thinking of 4 buffalo that either I or my buddies used the 375 on, and it killed just as fast as the 416s that I've used and the 458 lots because the bullets went to the right place, caused the hemorrhaging, and the animal fell over.
Yeah. Well, and, I think I'm a guide in the Western United States, you could say, and I'm much more of like a get enough gun to kill it and enough gun that you're going to hit it pretty hard with a lot of that bullet's going to hit with a lot of force and velocity and everything. But I can see how after shooting these animals in Africa, people are like, no, 7 mag, you want to go with a 375 H&H.
You want more bullet.
You want more bullet.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily need it. you can still kill the animal. Like Betsy killed the impala with a 243 pretty easily. We killed several animals with a 270 with a 130 or 140 grain bullet.
Yep.
You don't necessarily need it, but I can see how, especially for animals that could kill you, you're going to want something that will punch a little bit more authority.
Yeah. Common sense. Just because what I said about the lighter bullets and stuff will do the job doesn't mean that a bigger one wouldn't possibly or probably do it faster and or better. Obviously, you've got a wider bullet. You've got more mass. It's going to penetrate farther, et cetera, et cetera. And the whole idea is to rip that vital tissue and cause the hemorrhaging. So bigger bullet, why not? Odds are in your favor. Well, if you can't control the rifle, that's why not.
That's why not.
So I would say first thing, you got to be able to control the rifle and deliver an accurate shot
First
repeatedly.
thing would be zero your rifle.
That's part of it. Then go up in scale to what you can handle. When you get to the point where you're starting to be a little bit afraid of it, or you're coming out of too much recoil and you can't get back on your target quickly, that's when it's time to step down.
Yeah, yeah.
So the crazy thing is that it's 9.362, fairly smallish looking cartridge, more along the lines of a 30-06.
It looks like the 308 of the dangerous game world.
Yeah, but it got grandfathered in as acceptable for buffalo in several countries. That said, no, you have to have a 375 H&H. They said, but we'll grandfather this one in because so many Africans have it and have used it so successfully for so many years on buffalo, lions,
I would say if
hippo.
you're going to go to Africa and hunt dangerous game and you can't handle a ton, I shot this at the Sable. It did not recoil any more than a 30-06 or even a 7 mag.
At least it didn't feel like it to you.
Well,
Obviously,
I was
it really
shooting
does.
At Sables.
But, yeah.
But it recoiled. Don't get me wrong. It recoiled pretty good, but
You can handle it.
I could handle it pretty easy. And it was a lot more tame than that 416 Rigby, I can tell you that.
Oh, hey, there's another option right here, this little fatty. This is the 375 Ruger, which is really starting to catch on. I see it a lot up in Alaska with guides.
Yeah.
It's a 375. It does exactly what the 375 H&H does, but it does it in a shorter case. So you're going to get faster cycling of your bolt-action rifle, and it's essentially a 30-06 length rather than the full Magnum length. So a lot of guys are saying that's a great option. The only downside to it I see for Africa is access to ammunition. Generally, you want to bring enough ammo. You don't have to worry about trying to go to some store in the city and buying your ammo. But every once in a while it happens, and you're likely to find a 375 H&H, but not the Ruger.
Something that I also found that was interesting over there, Ron, was it seems as though, at least where we were at and the people that I talked to, the new cartridge fads have not really made it over there yet, or at least they don't care in some regards.
I think you're probably right. The exception is South Africa.
Yeah.
I think it's the closer you are to a more westernized culture and society with, I mean, face it, South Africa, they were the country who invented the artificial heart. In Johannesburg, and that was way back, in the 70s?
Yeah.
So it's not like they're a third world country or anything like that. So they get a lot more stuff in. They have their own firearms manufacturers and ammo makers and all the rest of it there. So there, you're more likely to see guys shooting a 6.5 PRC or a 6.8 Western and that stuff. But when you start getting into the boonies where we were up in Zambia.
I mean, there's two shooting cartridges. I don't think we shot a single cartridge that was developed after 1950.
1955, the 243.
Yeah.
That was the newest cartridge we shot.
Yeah. That's crazy to think about. I mean, I shot a Diker with a 222 Remington.
Yeah.
Which I'd never shot a 222 Remington.
1950.
And that's why I forgot that we used the 243 for a minute. 1950.
Yeah.
Before that, 270 was in the 30s. Oh my gosh. We were using some cool old school cartridges.
We were practically throwing rocks at them.
We were Neanderthals.
Well, I think the point is the right bullet in the right place, once again, is the key. Now, on the plains game, you shot most of yours with the 270, or you just really mixed it up, didn't you?
I didn't. I shot the reed buck with a 270. No, that was with a 243. Mm-hmm. I shot the reed buck with a 243.
That's about the size of a big whitetail.
Yep. I shot the Sable with a 9.3x6.2. I shot the Diker with a 333 or a 222. I shot the Cape Buffalo with the 416, and my water buck with a 375 H&H.
You shot a water buck?
I shot a water buck.
I didn't hang around with you often enough.
No, that was a really cool stalk on that
Yeah?
one as well. We were looking for zebra with Rico. We come up over the top of this little rise to this like little swampy area, kind of like a little oasis in the trees, little clearing. And there was some zebra down below us. There was 4 or 5 zebra, but they all had young. It was just females with young, and obviously we don't want to shoot one of those. But then the trackers and the guy and the PH get real excited. They're like, "Oh my gosh, big water buck!" And these are a different type of water buck. It wasn't big compared to the one you have on the wall over here, but
It's the Defasa subspecies.
I think East Angolan Defasa water
Something
buck,
like that, yeah.
that. But they're like, shoot it.
That was a big one, huh?
That's a big one. So I shot that one, and I couldn't believe how squishy that animal was.
Squishy?
It had like 4 inches of fat, is what it felt like on that animal. It was like touching a sponge.
They've got squishy hair. I've noticed that it always surprises me that they have as much pelage hair as they do. Usually you think of African elephants or animals and they're in the heat and they've got short hair like an impala.
Yeah.
Tight little short hair, like a short-haired the German short-haired retriever instead of an English setter.
But it was interesting shooting 5 animals with 5 different cartridges, and then you shot an animal with a 270. What did you shoot your hartebeest with?
That was the 9.362.
Yeah.
That was a completely unexpected. I wasn't even thinking of shooting one, and the PH said, "Oh, you got to shoot that one. It's a really good one. That's a top 10." I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know what a top 10 is. I wouldn't even know what a bottom 10 is. Probably if it had milk on its lips, it would be a bottom 10.
He could have told me to shoot a female and convinced me it was a bull.
He was all excited, wanted me to shoot it, so I got down into a kneeling position because it was only about 170 yards away, and I put it kind of behind the last rib forward and had to go in and finish it off with the next shot, but he just handed me this 9.3 by 62, which once again, guys, this is stupid. It was stupid on his part. It was stupid on my part. You shouldn't be doing that stuff. No. Here's a rifle you've never seen before. Shoot that animal. Fortunately, it worked out, but come on.
Yeah, the only animal that we really wounded that got away was the sable I shot, and after that,
I saw the video you had on that, and it looked to me like you cut some hair off the top of his neck.
If I hit, it was like it went through a little bit of muscle at the top. That animal's not going to die, and if it dies, that is the weakest sable.
I mean, you were not blood trailing that animal.
No, we found a few drops of blood,
and then it dried up.
And the video was very clear that. I mean, I had to freeze frame it. I froze frame it. I could see the bullet about an inch below the top of its neck.
Okay, and there's a lot of hair on the neck of a sable.
Yeah.
They've got a big mane on them, so it's hard to say that you even hit it.
I don't even know if I hit the neck or just.
Well, you must have nicked it enough to do that. So.
But it was not a very good confidence-inspiring thing for me for the first animal I shot in Africa to be wounded.
No doubt.
But lesson learned, and that's one of the reasons that we do the podcast is, and why I'm okay sharing that story is because a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that's a dumb move, rookie mistake." It was. It's my first time to Africa, right? But next time I go, I'm bringing my own rifle.
Well, and more importantly is we're offering our doofus behavior so that you don't have to. This is an object lesson. If old Grandpa Ron, who's been to Africa some 15, 20 times, can make a silly mistake like this, don't blame this poor guy for the first time he goes over there to do it. Plus, the PH is doing that sort of thing. This is the second or third time I've done that with PHs where they say, use my rifles. Well, the better ones were, now we're going to go out and take some shots. I want to make sure that this rifle fits you and you're shooting it where I've got it zeroed. And the other thing is, how is that rifle zeroed? A lot of guys think 100 yards is a great zero. And then you're out hunting at game that might be 300 yards away. What is the drop? I have never had a PH say, here is my trajectory table for this cartridge and this bullet. They don't really know that stuff or don't pay attention to it in most cases. And if they can't tell you that, how do you know how to hold?
You don't.
So that's another argument for your own rifle, your own scope, your own ammunition, and everything that you know it.
And if you're going to go after dangerous game, I would be like, hey, I need 5 shots out of this rifle.
At least you've got to not just know that it's zeroed, but how you can handle it and cycle it and all that.
Cycle it a few times. Practice shooting fast with it.
Yes.
The last thing I wanted to talk about real quick is how much hunting over there helps with conservation.
Oh, conservation. Okay.
And likewise helps animal numbers.
Got it.
Because if the people are benefiting directly from animals, whether that's meat, whether that's furs, whatever it is, they're incentivized to take care of them. And
absolutely.
I think what bothers me about people in the United States and elsewhere in the world is it's like, well, high fence hunting isn't hunting. It's like, well, then don't call it hunting. That's your standard of what that is. But it's harvesting an animal, regardless of how you look at it. And they use every bit of that meat. I mean, they're selling the meat, they're selling the hooves, they're doing stuff with the bones. You get to take the trophy home. That, you know, they're benefiting the country and the economy greatly from those things.
That's a great point. And I got chewed out by somebody on one of my videos recently who said, shame on you for coming over here and destroying the biodiversity of our African wildlife. Oh, it's just the opposite. I have, as I said earlier, been to Africa many times, and every time I'm visiting, traveling in a non-hunting area, they have places that are privately owned where they hunt. They have concessions that are owned by the local peoples, the villagers, the tribes, the government, and they manage those things for hunting. There's game every time. As soon as you get out of those areas, nothing. Goats and cattle.
We drove for 6 hours from the airport to our hunting concession. We did not see any wildlife, except birds. And then as soon as you're on the concession, the refuge, there's animals everywhere.
Continuing on this point, biodiversity. You go to a farm that used to have nothing on it but cows, because in the pioneer era, you moved in, you go, how are we going to make a living out here? Well, first of all, we're going to shoot all the game and sell it. And now we're going to turn our cows loose, or our sheep or goats, whatever, and we're going to make money off of that. Or we're going to start farming it. That generally doesn't happen to be too much farming there because it's so dry. So they're mostly ranching, but they call it farming. Well, there's your biodiversity out the door.
They don't care.
Because people are making a living off the land the same as they do here. Go to New York City, go to Los Angeles, how much biodiversity and wildlife do you find in town? Or even out in the vineyards. You're not going to have native wildlife ripping through those vineyards. They fence them off to protect the crop so you can have your wine and cheese parties.
I would say that to kind of close that thought out, at least on my end.
Close it out. I'm just getting started.
I feel like as hunters, so often we tend to morally posture with each other. And it's like we confuse sport with ethics in many regards. You can make something more sporting or less sporting. You know, if it's free range and there's only one of them in 100,000 acres.
That's pretty sporting.
And it's pretty sporting.
And if you hunt it with a rock, it's more sporting.
And it's more sporting, exactly. So technically, if you do it with your bare hands, it's even more sporting. So, but is it more ethical? Having to, you know, I would say no. What they're trying to accomplish over there is a balance between ethics and conservation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assessment. I would add this. I would say what they're trying to do is continue to make a living on the land with native wildlife rather than domestic crops. And that's the point I made to this guy who's complaining about the biodiversity loss. No, hunting has increased biodiversity on all the farms that I've been to, because they all, at least they told me, were once cattle farms, and about the only wildlife they had left on it were tiny little diker that they couldn't kind of clean out because it's too small to find them all or whatever. Yeah. Maybe a few hares bouncing around or something. But they had to bring back the kudu, the oryx, the wildebeest, you name it. And they've brought back giraffe. They've brought back once endangered Hartman Mountain zebras are now not, because
there was only 19 of those left.
They brought them into these ranches, bred them until they were common, and then it's like, okay, we've got all these zebras. What are we going to do to pay for them? We're going to have Tate come in here and shoot one for $1,000 or something, and that is going to give us the meat to sell or give to our local help or the villagers. So we've got the meat. We've got the hides. They're on sale right now in the airport in Joburg. A beautiful hide that you can use, and they're making money from us coming over there, creating jobs. So now they're bringing in some sable onto the ranch, increase the biodiversity once again. I've been on at least 3 places now that have been so successful at reintroducing native wildlife that they've been able to reintroduce the predators. Now, this is the big deal. If you own a big ranch and you're trying to make money off of it with your cattle, you don't need wolves and lions and whatever eating your cattle. That's the same thing with the wildlife. Now, they've got the biodiversity back. They have the native wildlife. Why would they introduce a lion who's going to be eating the sable that you would probably pay $6,000 to shoot? They lose the meat. They lose the income. Nobody's making anything off of this. They do it because they care about wildlife.
It's true.
And that's what people miss who just flip it off and say, oh, you've shot an animal. You're killing everything off. I guess that's the reason animals are extinct. You've got to understand how this stuff works.
You do. And I think that non-hunters and hunters alike need to recognize that ethics is different than sportsmanship. Sportsmanship maybe makes it harder, but hunting is a sport or a event, if you will, where there's not really a lot of set rules. It's kind of up to yourself to decide what is sporting and what's not to a large degree.
Yeah.
And if we can get away from thinking that high fence hunting is unethical, maybe it's not as sporting in your mind, but it's not necessarily unethical. Unethical would be like, I wounded an animal 4 times, or I'm torturing this poor animal. If you're putting the animal out of its misery very quickly, that's what ethics means in my mind.
Well, ethics is always yin and yang. One man's ethics is another man's. No, that's not a problem. But I don't think the ethical part of it is really so valid as the biological component.
Yeah.
What are we doing, and does that improve or detract from native populations, native wildlife?
If you're going to make the animal go extinct, obviously you'd stop what you're doing.
Now, you keep saying high-fenced hunting, and I know what you're getting at, but you weren't hunting on a high-place ranch. Well, that's right. He did have fences way out there.
He had
someplace.
fences, but you never saw one.
That's right. I remember driving out of the place when suddenly there was no more wildlife, and that there has to be a fence. And I looked down through the trees, and I could see it.
Yeah. Okay. But you never saw the fence otherwise.
No, and it was such a vast property. We would drive for
20 miles.
Yeah, you had to drive for like hours. We're driving very slowly on very bumpy trails and whatnot, but it wasn't as if we push them hard enough, they'll hit the fence and then we'll have them.
They just run into the trees. You'd never see them again.
Yeah.
But
I get what you're saying on that one, yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like as hunters, sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
Well, sometimes we are, bad behavior and not understanding exactly what your role is. And you were mentioning before the rules and regulations and stuff not being so important. I think there are lots of rules and regulations and boundaries around sport hunting. That's why we call it sport hunting. People think it's not a sport. Baseball's a sport. You want to waste your time playing around. You can play badminton or baseball. That's a sport. But killing animals is serious stuff. That's not a sport. This is not defining sport. Sportsmanship and sport means there are rules of the game and there are boundaries. So it's improving one's behavior, whether you call it ethical behavior or what. So the sport rules would say you can't go out at night with a spotlight and shoot your animals. That's not sporting. Yeah. You could still limit the take and say here's one tag, you can shoot one sable. If you do it with a spotlight or not, it's up to you. We would prefer to think, no, that's not really hunting. And there's where your ethic issue comes in. Where is it unethical? Where isn't it for different people?
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying with that is, and I apologize to everybody that's watching, is I think we need to be careful that if it's doing good to animal populations and it's being effective at helping manage animal populations and they're not suffering, we need to be careful not to project our own views of what is sporting and what is ethical on other people, as long as it is actually humane. I get what you're understandable,
saying.
Right?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. First of all, do no harm.
Yes.
And then somebody will say, well, you shot the animal. How much harm can you possibly do? Well, if you have a whole bunch of elephants and other big animals inside of a national park where they're protected from the evil hunters, and you're concerned about cruelty, how cruel is it to have those animals starving? Because they literally do eat themselves out of house and home, especially elephants. You go to national parks with a lot of elephants, and they have stripped all the trees, pushed them over, killed them, turned forests into grasslands, turned grasslands into deserts. And then where do all the smaller animals who needed that cover, where do they live? So everything suffers, everything declines in numbers. Those animals need to be shot, harvested, culled, whatever you want to call it. But it's no longer the big wide globe in which nature gets to run rampant. We've got too many highways, too many people, too many farm fields, too many cities, and all the rest of it. It has to be managed. And good management can result in increased biodiversity, increased wild lands, and by wildlife increases, but so does the fauna, all the plants. You got to consider those too. There are plenty of plants that are endangered species around the world because of habitat loss. And most of that habitat loss is humans turning wild country into domestic production.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And anymore, it's getting harder and harder for us in the United States to hunt because it's so popular to want to hunt. And speaking of that, actually, I have a new tag application service.
Here comes the advertisement.
Sorry, I had to throw it in there. I have a tag application service that we just rolled out. to help people obtain tags. We're going to put people in for draws, help them build points in certain states, kind of help them with strategies. And we helped you this year put in for some draws.
It's true, and I didn't get it.
You didn't. Well, you told us some bad advice. No, just joking.
Yeah, I told you to get me a tag in Colorado where I have something like 15 points for an elk, and I can never draw an elk tag.
Which is crazy that you didn't draw. You were like one of 3 people that didn't draw that tag.
There's the crux of it. It's my luck.
But anyway, we're going to roll that out. If you're interested, look at processbasedhunter.com and our tag application service and reach out to us. We're happy to go through a consultation with you and kind of figure out if it's a good fit.
I want to back you up on that. Guys, if you are like me, the worst part of hunting is trying to get these tags in licenses. I hate it. It's complicated. You've got to go online and you got to have a password and on it goes. And they're indecipherable. You have to spend hours figuring out each state's system for applying for a tag, and then you end up not getting it anyway. So you spent 4 days of your life for nothing.
For one state.
Hire this guy to spend 4 days for you.
And we don't charge you 4 days worth of labor because we do it for lots of other people.
Yeah, they didn't charge me $100 a day. Isn't that your normal rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, since you did an advertisement, I'm going to do one too. If you guys want to know all about the 7mm cartridges in the world, here's my book, 7mm, sells like hotcakes. Well, maybe not quite that hot.
I'll back him up on that. I read the book. It's a good book.
I'm missing the 7mm backcountry cartridge. That came out after the book. Well, we'll get it in there, one of these updates and revisions. You can also get my predator hunting book.
I read that one too. It's also very good.
Are you any good at hunting predators now? You finally got one?
I did call on a coyote after I read the book.
Bingo! There you go, folks. Endorsement. Well, what else do you want to tell folks about going to Africa for the first time? What else did you learn besides bring your own rifle?
Okay, top 3 things real fast. Bring your own rifle, obviously, or at least familiarize yourself with the rifle that you are given when you're over there. Make sure you're shooting it, you're confident with it, you get used to the ballistics. Next, we hired somebody named Gracie Travel. It was a travel agency, and they helped us. They met us in the airport. They brought us everywhere we needed to go. And in a foreign country that you're not used to, you're a little bit afraid, you're a little bit nervous, whatever you want to call it, that was really convenient to just have them take care of everything.
Oh, that's great advice. Yeah, Betsy and I learned that too.
It was super nice.
Yeah.
I would do that again in a heartbeat.
They'll not only meet you at the airport and take you to the police and get your rifle and go through all that paperwork, but ahead of time they give you every step of the way. You need to do this, and then you need to do that, and you get it all done so you don't have to worry about it.
And they send you all the paperwork.
Yes.
Like they do a very good job with that. And then you go into the country knowing that you're doing everything legally if you're bringing firearms into the country, and you're feeling a lot more confident about that.
And if there's a glitch anywhere in this along the line, they're there to fix that for you. One time we couldn't find our guns at the police station. The Gracie representative, Bruce, gotten to be a good friend of ours, he goes to the right place and says, why can't you got this guy's firearm? He's got all the paperwork. It's all been done properly. Where is it? And they got after the crew, went out and found the rifles lying on the tarmac at the airport in Joburg in the rain.
Ooh.
If I hadn't had Bruce there to do this stuff, those rifles would probably be out there still rusting on the airport tarmac.
And then the last thing I would say is, if it's your first time in Africa, I would maybe stick with somewhere a little bit closer to get to, honestly.
Yeah, excellent point there.
It was super difficult to get to where we were going. We were in the middle of nowhere, and then we went further into the middle of nowhere, and then went further into the middle of nowhere, which was an amazing experience. But for your first time, maybe just to hunt in South Africa or Namibia or somewhere like that has a little bit more infrastructure might be more convenient, especially South Africa.
That's great advice. So the way it works, guys, is you'll fly to usually Joburg or Cape Town, and then you have to transfer to, if you went to Mozambique, to wherever you're going there. So there's an extra flight.
And then another charter flight from wherever you were at, or a drive that might be 8 or 10 hours.
Yeah.
Or another hour flight from there to another spot. And then you're still going to have to drive a little bit regardless.
Yeah. And every time you change countries, you've got more paperwork, more rifle permits and all. You just can't say, hey, book me a flight to Zambia. I'm going to go to Zambia hunting, so why should I go to Joburg first? Let's go to Lusaka. Can't. There may be an airline or two in the world somewhere that would take you there, but I've never found it.
I haven't either.
Gracie Travel is what we use. Again, it's like, Gracie, how do I get there? Well, the most convenient way and the least expensive way is like this. So that's what
you got a country hop is basically what you got to do. So, I would look for an outfitter that would be maybe just in South Africa in the Limpopo or somewhere closer to the airport.
Well, the nice thing about the close to the airport stuff is not only do you not have to then take another flight, but usually the outfitter, one of his guides or somebody will be there with the truck to pick you up. Yeah. So, man, that's like one-stop shopping. You fly from Atlanta or Newark or Washington, D.C. to Joburg. He picks you up at that airport. You're done.
Yep.
You're off to the hunting camp.
That's what
Whereas what you did was Joburg, Lusaka, Solwezi,
then a 6-hour
taxi,
drive.
6 hours over ruts on top of ruts.
It took 2.5 full
ruts.
days of travel from start to finish.
Yeah, backbreaker. And Betsy's weighing in.
I also have medical insurance.
Oh. Well, Betsy asks us to remind you, you need
travel insurance, basically. It's medical travel insurance. So if you get gored by Cape Buffalo in Africa, your insurance will cover all of your flights and all of your travel with very good medical support to get all the way home. You're not just going to be at the nearest hospital in Africa for 2 months while you recover.
They're not going to take you into the hospital and fix you up if you don't have the cash or the insurance. A friend of mine, his wife got appendicitis. And all of a sudden, emergency, and they rushed to the hospital in Windhoek.
Like, where's the money?
And Windhoek says, you want in? Let's see the cash. He had to go get a bunch of money out of some teller machines and stuff with his credit cards and get his... Holy mackerel. Can you imagine having to do that if you're over there hunting?
No.
So this insurance really is a big deal.
Yeah. If you get that medical travel insurance, it just kind of is peace of mind. I'm grateful I got that too. Gratefully, nobody in our group needed it. But it was well worth getting. It's like $130.
Well, it would have been worth getting if you'd needed it.
Yes.
But, yeah. Okay. Good advice, Betsy. Thank you. Oh, all right. Anything else we want to add? People are interested in Africa. They can always write and ask us more questions. Hey, guys, if you want to join me on Patreon, this is the big deal. We're putting a lot more effort into helping out our patrons here, so we are giving them blow-by-blow information about places like Africa and Argentina and New Zealand. What is it like to go there? What do you need to know? That might help you out a whole bunch. So if go to patreon.com and then look for Ron Spomer Outdoors and join us as one of our supporters. It not only helps keep the lights on and the microphones tuned up, but it will give you the opportunity to reach out to me and give you advice on questions like this, because I'm getting a lot of guys asking stuff like that. Like, well, what happens when I get to the airport in this big city? Where do I go? And,
we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, you can help with that too now.
I'll try and help.
Yeah, you've been there, done that. All right. Anything else? The most difficult stalk I had on this hunt was for a lechwe, a black lechwe.
Yeah.
What was happening was that the guides were driving into the areas, and then they would see the animals, which meant the animals saw us, and then they were on the alert. So you'd have a herd that would be peacefully grazing or lying down until this truck showed up. And then they all jumped up and looked, and it was like, all right, try to sneak up on those now. A little late in the game, guys. And I had a difficulty telling what I wanted to do. It was a bit of a language barrier, and I wanted to get out and stalk before they knew we were around. So I wanted to go into the woods and find those animals in an opening someplace and make my stalk. Classic hunting stuff, right? Once I got it through to them, it was like, okay, we can do that. I was getting some eye rolls like they knew something I didn't, which was somebody's tried that before, and they're as alert to who's crunching in the woods as much as the truck coming by. So either way, you had to be really cautious. But what I really learned when you went with me on that one, we could get, by being really cautious and sneaky, with easily
yards.
300 yards. And they were still unalerted, feeding away. So I thought, well, let's go a little closer, because, again, I didn't trust these rifles. Didn't know the trajectory curve. With my 270, piece of cake at 300 yards. With this one, let's try to get to 250 or 200 yards.
Yep.
And I think we would have made it, but we had a couple of trackers behind us going, I think they might get nervous now. And when you step off to the side like that and move around a lot, they do get nervous.
And they run away.
And they jump up and run away. But it was a good good education. I really enjoyed those stalks, and I would love to have been by myself and pulled it off. But I needed you because you had the binocular with a rangefinder in it. Well, that's another thing, guys. Bring a rangefinder. These days, I pretty much assume that guides, professional guides, will have a good rangefinder. And when you don't know the ballistics of your borrowed rifle, it's even more important to know exactly how far away that animal is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that either. So that's why I dragged Tate along. Quit hunting for yourself and come hunt for me. I need your rangefinder.
I gladly did, by the way. It was a fun time.
Hey, if you guys are interested in good reference books and stuff for Africa before you go over, I really think it's useful to get to know the wildlife before you get there. Now, I'm a birder, so I've always picked up these bird books, which are really, really fun. And it adds a good element to the whole trip because you're discovering more of wild Africa. But if you're kind of the classic hunter who's only interested in the animals, there are plenty of guides and manuals that tell you all about the different animals in Africa. So you get to know them and their behaviors. Are they a herding animal? Are they singles? Do the male and female hang out together and defend a territory against everyone else? What are the relative sizes of their antlers, et cetera, et cetera? And here's just some of the books that I have in my library to help with that sort of thing. And it's just plain fun to get you fired up for Africa before you even go. And then when you get there, you know something about the behavior of the lechwe or the sable or the kudu.
Or that the Orby always is in pairs.
In pairs?
In pairs.
Isn't that empires?
I guess so.
Well, listen, Tate, I want to thank you for sharing Africa with me. Actually, I enjoyed sharing it with him because his excitement, you could imagine how excited he's going to be. And he was loving it. Every new hunter in Africa loves it. So it was really fun to see Africa once again through fresh eyes. I always enjoy that. And if any of you are looking for an African hunt, I'm not guiding anybody on a hunt, but when I go, I will often invite people to come along, and it's all up to you and the outfitter, but you're going to be in camp with me. I've got at least one, I think I've got 6 guys, 4 of them are patrons who want to go along next year. So I'm putting together some options. Do we want to go to Namibia or South Africa or exactly where? But we're going to get those hunts set up. So if you are interested in going on a safari and you want to have somebody to kind of help, a little crutch to lean on, I'm happy to do that for you guys going through the airports, or at least giving you this basic advice on how to get there. And then we'll be in camp together and we can share some stories around the campfire. It's always a great lot of fun. And so just stay in touch. But again, if you're a patron, you've got all the information. I'm filling everybody in there and signing them up. So reach out and we'll see if we can't get you on your first safari, see if you have as much fun as Tate, and get your sable with your first shot.
Yes, exactly.
Congrats on the buffalo, by the way.
Yes, that was with my first shot.
Yay, there you go. So, hey, good to talk to everybody. I hope you are successful in all of your adventures, and do stretch out, reach out, do something crazy and wild and expand your horizons, because once you get out of the good old US of A and you hunt in another country, it sort of breaks the ice and you discover we are all on planet Earth together. Humanity, we've gone around the globe many, many times, every which way. You've got as much right to hunt in Africa as someone who is born there. They have as much right to come over here and hunt. We enjoy having visitors come to our country, and they're the same. They love it when you go over there. You're providing jobs. They love to share what they know, and you learn about different cultures and what they think, and it just helps, I think, everybody, and especially the wildlife. Hunting is saving wildlife in Africa. Make no mistake about it. So until next time, good success to you wherever you hunt, wherever you roam. Enjoy nature in all of its fullest, and we will see you next time. Hunt honest and shoot straight.